I'm a server at a Midwestern diner. A few weeks ago, a customer appeared at one of the booths. I say appeared because I hadn't seen her come in, and usually I am very attentive to the sound of the doorbell. It was a pretty bustling evening, though. I approached to take her order. She sat with her back to me, her curly hair pinned up in a style that reminded me of old movies. Her age was hard to determine from behind, but she looked to be in her 60s, I guess. She was sitting perfectly still, statuesque. When I came around to the front of the booth, I gasped and dropped my pen. The woman was not breathing, lips slightly parted, skin withered and shrunken. No movement, not the faintest motion of her chest, but it was the eyes that were the giveaway she was dead, unblinking and unseeing, and a little too deeply shrunken in their sockets. Oh God. I took a step back, and then the woman's head turned and she said in a raspy voice, "Just a coffee, please." Her eyes blinked. Not dead, after all. "Oh, of course, sure. Any milk or sugar?" "Black." I scurried to get her coffee. When I looked back, she was again motionless. When it came time for the check, she put down a $50 bill. I started to tell her I didn't have change since all she'd ordered was a coffee, but she said, "It's all right, dear. It will cover the meal for that nice family over there." Her head inclined, ever so slightly, to a family in the corner booth having dinner. The family in the corner were regulars. Came here every Sunday with the kids. The parents were divorced. The kids lived with their dad, and their mom always picked them up on weekends. This diner was on the route between the parents' houses, and they'd meet up here to discuss the plans for the next week. They always left a tip, and the kids drew pictures for me. "Really?" I said to the old woman. "That's very nice of you." Without another word, the old woman stood up and left. The family were very pleasantly surprised when I approached and informed them that their meal had been paid for. They asked by who, and I told them the old woman from the other booth. One of the kids looked over where I'd indicated and said, "I didn't see any woman sitting there." Weird. The next time the old woman appeared was several weeks later. It was after midnight. Again, I heard no bell ring above the door. I was wiping down the counters, and when I looked up, there she was, sitting at the same booth, like a statue, silent. I came over to take her order. I wondered if I should ask her about the family. I hadn't seen them in the weeks since she'd paid for their meal. It was strange. They'd been coming every Sunday, and then after she paid their meal, they stopped. As I neared the booth, suddenly the woman inhaled. It struck me that until then she'd been so still, I hadn't been sure if she'd been breathing at all. She turned to me and said, "Coffee, please, black." "Sure." Since she wasn't exactly chatty, I just went and got her coffee, trying to work up the nerve to strike up a casual conversation and ask her about the family. Before I could, the doorbell rang and Carlos came in. Carlos was a friend of my boss who liked to drop in once in a while. He ordered a burger, and we began chatting about how things were with his girlfriend and with his girlfriend's boyfriend. I can never keep track of who's in his astonishingly wide relationship circle. Apparently, he just adopted a dog. He showed me pictures while he ate. "Carlos, not to be mean, but that might be the world's fuggliest dog," I told him. He laughed. "Nobody wanted her. That's why I took her." "That's sweet of you, but that thing looks like it has rabies." "Scabies." "What?" "I'm kidding. She's got mange, though." He started to tell me about how he'd rescued her when I heard a throat clear and remembered the woman at the booth. Shoot, I'd forgotten her order. I hurried to get her coffee, and as I set it down, asked if she wanted anything else, and she put a 20 down and said it was for that nice young man's burger. She didn't even drink the coffee I gave her. She got up and left, ignoring me when I started to ask, "Are you sure? Why do you keep paying for—" "Hey," called Carlos. "Who are you talking to?" "The woman." I turned back, but she was already gone. "What woman? It's just you and me. You okay? Are you high or something?" I looked at the money in my hand. It was real enough. "Burgers on the house," I told him. "For real? Thanks." He scarfed the last bite, hopped up, and told me he was late. No idea what sort of date he was off to at 1 a.m., but that's Carlos. And then he was breezing out the door. The next day, I heard he'd been shot. My boss told me. We were chatting about the boss's dog, and I mentioned Carlos's mangy rescue dog, and he suddenly got serious and informed me that last night, Carlos had been jumped on his way to a bar. He'd tried to fight off the muggers, but one of them had a gun. "They shot him in the head," he said grimly. "Jesus," I said. My boss told me Carlos had been rushed to the hospital, but he was hanging by a thread, almost certain to die. Or if he survived, he'd be a vegetable. I was shaken, deeply, deeply shaken. Poor Carlos, his poor girlfriend, his poor mangy dog. And a thought intruded. Was it because of the old woman? What about the family that used to come in Sundays but had disappeared? Had misfortune struck them too? I resolved that the next time I saw the old woman, I would ask her what she was doing. I wouldn't let her pay for the next customer. The old woman returned just this afternoon. There were only a handful of customers, as it was between the lunch and dinner hour. As always, I didn't hear her come in. One moment I was busy buzzing dishes, the next I spotted her at the booth. I straightened up and approached her. Her sunken eyes turned to me. I could never get over the feeling I was looking at death itself. Then she gave that sudden inhalation like she was remembering to breathe, and she said, "Coffee, black, and—" I was surprised at the "and." "A root beer float," she added. I just pressed my lips together, nodded, and went to get the drinks. Surveyed the room. There were 3 other tables with customers. An old couple, a family with a teenage daughter, a woman working on her laptop. And even though I should have gotten the old woman her drinks right away, I instead made sure to get everyone else's orders to their tables and to get their bills to them. The couple paid, as did the woman on her laptop. That left only the family. They were still eating. I fetched the coffee and the float for the old woman, but mentally resolved not to let her pay for anybody. She did not react to my placing the drinks beside her. I was tense, counting the minutes until the family was near to finishing. The old woman cleared her throat. Ignoring her, I hurried over to the family and asked if they wanted dessert. They didn't, so I asked how they'd like to pay and quickly rang them up. Only then did I return to the old woman's booth. She had not touched either drink. She put a $10 bill on the table and said, "The root beer float is for you." "Oh," I said, and goosebumps rose along my arms, because how did she know that root beer floats are my favorite? "No, I can't have customers buy me drinks. It's against policy." "I insist," she said. "I'll bring you change for the coffee." She got up. "Actually, wait. Here, I'll pay for everything." I quickly reached into my pocket for my wallet and dropped $10 onto the table. "I'll get your coffee, too. On the house, since I took so long with your order." She frowned. "Accept the gift that is given to you." "Nope. I can pay for the root beer float even though I didn't drink it, and your coffee is free." And I took her $10 and, holding my breath, seized her papery hand and shoved the bill into her fingers. She exhaled and left. I didn't turn around as she walked past me, didn't hear the doorbell ring. But a moment later, when I looked over my shoulder, there was no trace of the old woman. A feeling of relief swept over me. A little while later, the dinner hour had arrived and the tables were full. I heard the doorbell ring, and it was them, my family of regulars. Today's not a Sunday, and I hadn't seen them in so long, so I was very surprised. I cleaned up their usual booth and got them seated, and when I came over to take their order, I exclaimed about how I'd missed seeing them. "Oh yeah, it was pretty crazy," said the dad. "After we left, last time we drove together. And I don't know if you remember how hard it was raining, but the car skidded and we lost control." "You lost control," corrected the mom. "Yes, I lost control, because it was the minivan that I told you not to get because those things flip way too easily. And it did. It rolled. I mean, it spun out right in the middle of the highway and then flipped over the guardrail and rolled." "I swear my soul left my body," said one of the kids. "It was very harrowing. We just couldn't come back here for a while," said the mom. "Were you hurt?" I asked, stunned. "Just minor injuries. The police said it was really just miraculous how we all came out of it alive." The mom smiled. I nodded, glad for them, relieved to have my regulars back again. They said they couldn't bring themselves to come for a while because of the accident, but the kids kept asking, so tonight they decided to meet here for dinner. After I put in their order, I called my boss to let him know because he'd been worried about them too. He sounded delighted on the phone and told me he had some good news of his own. "Carlos is going to pull through. He's awake from the coma and he's now on the road to recovery." "That's great," I said, even as at that moment something clicked. I typed all this up instead of leaving at the end of my shift tonight. I've been thinking about the old woman, how she looked. Well, like death. Or maybe more like near death. I keep thinking about how Carlos took a bullet to the brain, how the family of regulars were in a horrific accident, how all of them should have been dead, but they survived by a miracle. And I think I may have made a terrible mistake. So now I'm terrified to leave the diner. Terrified because I didn't let her pay for my drink. I just don't want to know what happens next.